Govapalooza. So we just went live with this morning. Excuse me, my COO needs to be let out here. Okay, there we go. And Kim, maybe you could put the link in the chat. But the Govapalooza website is available, and you can register to attend this conference. It's going to be a historic event, bringing together up to 10,000 local government professionals, elected officials, chiefs of police, fire, planners, city managers, and interested folks who want to work in this space to discuss the very best in local government. What is going right in local government? What is amazing in local government? What innovations are out there? What does the future look like? And how do we not only survive this pandemic, but thrive and become anti-fragile, stronger than ever, and really come together as a community and go forward into 2021, just excited and energized and full of tools. Rebecca, I know you're gonna be there, and I want to invite the whole Futures Friday crowd. So you can go to transformgov.org/Govapalooza, learn more and sign up.
Awesome. I'm going to be there. I'm super excited. In fact, I'm so excited about First of all, the name alone, Govapalooza, come on. And this is something that would not be possible without COVID. There is no way that you would get fire, police, planners, public works, like all the superheroes from local government together in one conference without something like this. So my hat is off to Joel and to his whole team at the Alliance for doing this. It's going to be awesome. If you register before a certain cutoff date that Kim or Joel will tell us shortly, I'm going to be doing a mini futurist camp, a 2-hour version of a normal 29-hour version for those of you who register before a certain cutoff date. And I can't wait to do that. I'm thrilled that you guys are going to give me the opportunity to try to do that kind of speed dating for education. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be totally awesome. The one thing I just want, so open up your chat. Kim's got the Govapalooza in there. I'm going to add to the chat that we just opened registration for our 2021 Futurist Camp. We got our first 7 people registered right away. We'd love to see you there. And you can test drive it if you sign up for Joel's event, and you can do the 2-hour crash course. So without further ado, I want to welcome those of you who are here. I got emails from a ton of people who were like, Rebecca, a week before Thanksgiving, are you killing us with this Futures Friday? I'm interested in AI. I'm interested in AV. I'm interested in electrification of all of our city services. Why are you having Ken here on the Friday before Thanksgiving? And I was like, I'm sorry, time's weird right now. I don't even know if it's Friday or if it's July. So we are recording this event so that Ken's remarks and all of their insight can be shared with everybody. And frankly, I'm kind of glad we're not having like 300 people on today's call, Joel, because this is yours and my first opportunity doing this together. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we'll work it out.
Yeah, exactly. So we're still getting kind of our back antics figured out. So we want to welcome you guys. Joel, why don't you go ahead? Let's start. Let's introduce Ken, introduce the topic. We don't want to waste any time. There is a lot to talk about here. Take it away, sir.
Amen. My honor and privilege is to introduce Ken Miguel Cipriano. Ken is an avid walk, roll, ride commuter and has been car-free since 2013. They bring a startup and design background to their work at Mobile GR, which we'll hear more about. They love their work because it sits at the intersection of economic development, planning, and mobility, which is a nice little triangle. If they had one wish, it would be to have high-speed rail throughout Michigan. Ken, what a pleasure it is to have you here today. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Thanks so much, Joel.
Hey.
And it's great to be in good company with a bunch of other nerds, whether it be mobility nerds, transit nerds. Just to show a little bit of my cred, I've got a collection of my transit passes that I've gone to.
Wow.
Cities I've been to. Just there, just had to flex a little bit of my cred.
You know what, Ken, you should put your address in the chat, because I have a whole bunch of those. Like, I've got Oyster cards and Metro cards. I'm never going to use them again. I would love to put them in your collection and know that they're in a nice, safe place. So as we often do, just to kind of warm everybody up, as you all know, listening for signals is a key thing that futurists do. They listen for signals. And so under this category of autonomous vehicles or electrification of the city, city services, electrification of vehicles. I wonder if maybe Ken, Joel, and I might each start with a signal. And if anybody on the call today wants to throw a signal into the chat, we can add that. But what signals are you picking up right now around AVs or EVs or what do you got? Who wants to start? Signals.
I'm unfamiliar with the phrasing, so I'm excited I'm sure I have something, but I'd like to hear from someone first and then I'll jump in.
Yeah. Okay. So here's a signal. Signals are things that are like, they're not trends yet, right? They're like they're almost like a dot of rain on a window pane. So it's like, it's not a full storm. It's not creating, inches and inches of buildup. That's a trend. But a signal is kind of that whisper of something that just makes you turn your head to the side and say, And here's a whisper that I heard recently around pretty much related to this issue. And that is, I heard from a public power utility that has talked about their role in electrifying all of public transportation in their 2-state regional area. So to hear an electric company, a utility company, I mean, of course it's in their best interest, right? Because this is going to drive up, electrification and usage rates and so forth. But to hear them proactively saying, we need to work with our 2-state Metro Transit to help them electrify faster. I was like, whoa, this is amazing. So that was a signal that kind of caught my attention. What about you, Joel? Anything you're picking up? You're out in California in the AV, EV space.
So out here, it is just a very vibrant space. It's very interesting to see this stage of the sector development where you have pure garage startups going up against mid-tiers like Tesla and GM all the way at the very top. And everybody thinks that they're going to win this market. And it's a really exciting time because I think what I've seen as an innovator over the years is that it's less about the particular technology than it is about building an ecosystem of people who speak the same language and are kind of driving towards the same thing. And then I don't want to use the word accidents here, but happy accidents happen along the way, and unintended collaborations start to happen. And the more elements you can bring into the ecosystem, the stronger it gets. And so I'm feeling like we're at a tipping point where there's capital, there's energy, there's know-how that is now decades old of people really kind of investing in knowing how to do this. And the public also is on board. You're not seeing as many people just kind of standing in front of an EV and saying, no, I'm not going to let you drive here. It's kind of like, okay, so when are you going to pick me up? They're more like waiting for us to get to them.
I'll have to say that I've heard something similar to that. This has been my signal that I've been picking up. I've been following the kind of like at-home hacker community for a while now. Maybe some of you know YouTuber Jehu Garcia out in California, and he does a lot of at-home cells, like energy cells. And so he creates it himself. He's retrofitted a VW bus, and he has no formal training in any of this. And so he's creating his own little space here, and he's helping people retrofit vehicles, but he's also building his own at-home like energy cells, like the Tesla wall, the power wall he's created his own out of spare computer batteries. And I think he's really starting something that will catch on in the next 3 to 5 years, where he's open sourcing it as well. So people can create their own power walls. It's a little bit dangerous if you don't do your homework and follow it really well. But just like anything else, we saw the same thing with Apple building the computer. People were like, it's too complicated, it's too dangerous, I don't want it, I just want to buy it. And then the community grows. We're at that left beginning of the bell curve, I think, is where Jehu resides. So that's what I've been signal and we've been feeling lately.
Ken, I love it. And you have picked up perfectly on what a signal is, because very often signals happen at the edge of a market. I mean, that's the whole thing, is it's a signal when it's at the edge before it gets into the mainstream. So if you guys have signals that you are picking up on in your markets or on your Twitter feeds around AVs or EVs, would love to hear those. Put them in the chat. We'll see if we can disseminate this out to the larger audience. So with that, we're at this part in the program now where Joel and I want to talk with Ken about the things that they're discovering along the process. But Ken, we also know that you put a deck together. So what do you think makes sense? Do you want to do your deck first and then we come to the questions?
Yeah, that sounds good. I normally, it's with the pandemic, it's obviously not possible, but I always have liked more of an interaction, a back and forth. But let's just get this out of the way, the presentation, and then we'll go with questions, and then hopefully we'll have enough time for everyone to have some questions and a good interaction.
Sounds good. Take it away.
All right, let me do some screen share here. And all right, does that look all right to everybody?
Looks great.
Yep, looks good.
Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for taking the time to join this webinar. My name is Ken Miguel Cipriano, and I'm a transportation analyst with the City of Grand Rapids, Mobile GR and Parking Services Department. For those of you who have come in a little bit later, I'll be talking to you today about our autonomous vehicle initiative known as AVGR. All right, AVGR is one of our city initiatives from 2019. Our reasons behind the decision to bring autonomous vehicles to the City of Grand Rapids have been feasibility, accessibility, and community. Behind feasibility, we've been searching to assess barriers and benefits of implementing autonomous vehicles in Grand Rapids, understand the public reaction and level of acceptance of AV technology, the feasibility and learning related to AV passenger service, road network and signal readiness for AVs, and to test all weather conditions for AVs as well, since we are a 4 seasons climate here in Michigan. AVGR is a public-private partnership between the City of Grand Rapids and the operator May Mobility, along with 8 other local corporations that you see here. This partnership has proven to be useful during the pandemic, as it helped May Mobility pivot quickly to meet new COVID-19 public health standards. So May Mobility offers 4 automated electric shuttles with 6 seats each and a fleet attendant. I always say flight attendant, so I'm glad I said fleet attendant this time. It throws people off. And emergency controls on every vehicle. The AVs don't necessarily need vehicle to infrastructure technology to operate. These vehicles can operate solely using an onboard system, and that's cameras and LiDAR. The vehicle to infrastructure would make some folks feel even more comfortable. So that is a future effort that we will be looking to explore. In December of 2019, May Mobility added a wheelchair accessible vehicle to their Grand Rapids fleet. The partnership really helped to explore opportunities for ADA and accessibility issues. There's currently no ADA standard for low-speed electric vehicles. One of the pilot goals, and of utmost importance to the City of Grand Rapids, is that new technology is accessible to everyone. May Mobility developed a prototype for a wheelchair accessible vehicle and workshop features in August of 2019 to make sure it would be functional for people who would use it, and in partnership with Disability Advocates of Kent County and Downtown Grand Rapids, Inc. Wheelchair users can call the customer service number available on the website and on stop information sheets to have a shuttle come directly to their location. Which is any stop along Dash West, our Dash West route, and will drop off point to point to any other stop on the Dash West route. If a wheelchair customer has a personal care assistant, May Mobility will dispatch an accompanying shuttle to follow the Wave shuttle to its destination. And of course, Wave service is free of charge. So like I feel like everyone that's doing Zoom presentations during the pandemic has this slide. So like all other services, AVGR was affected significantly by the COVID-19 pandemic. In mid-March, May Mobility suspended service to discover methods for increasing public health safety for customers and fleet attendants. Service has resumed in August, or did resume in August, and will continue until the end of the year. You can see here the adjustments made to the interior of the vehicle, the partition separating the fleet attendant. But what you can't see is the Halosil Halofogger, kind of a mouthful, that sanitizes the vehicle between rides with a mist of hydrogen peroxide. The separated air exchange and upgrade filters you can't see to the HVAC system, as well as changes to the passenger area. So now where before there was up to 5 passenger seats in the vehicle, 4 in the main cabin and 1 available in the fleet attendant cabin. The passenger area in the rear still features seating for 4 people, but is now limited to carrying 1 rider at a time or 1 grouping of riders who are part of the same household. And of course, the fleet attendant box is now closed to any other riders. So you heard me mention Dash West. So this is the route. The Grand Rapids route has the most stops of any May Mobility route, 20, which is 20, and possibly of any autonomous vehicle deployment in the world. There are 4 automated electric shuttles with 6 seats each and a fleet attendant along with emergency controls on every vehicle. The vehicles follow the existing Dash West route, Dash standing for Downtown Area Shuttle. The Dash has 2 routes, the other being Dash North. A lot of people choose to use Dash because of the low cost parking lots at those stops, and that allow them to affordably travel to the downtown core. So the effects, ridership now is about 1/5 of what it was in February. We're now down to about 80 rides a day. This is from our September 2020 data. Decline is due in part to people working from home. People are more cautious of taking public transit. They're cautious of shared spaces. And so we then see a result of less commuter traffic into the downtown core. Cost per ride, of course, has changed as well, from an average of just under $7 to $22.72 as of September 2020. So how does this compare to something like Dash? Dash typically averages around $5 a ride, and for this route. A common question that has emerged with this pilot is whether Dash West ridership has declined due to the redundancy of the service on the same route by AVGR vehicles. And we see here that this does not appear to be the case. Augmenting the Dash West route with AVGR vehicles has actually increased ridership on Dash by 51% in September 2019 compared to the same time the year before, 2018. 17% of the increase is attributed to Dash West service, and an additional 34% is attributed to the AVGR pilot. So it has been incredibly helpful to the City of Grand Rapids to have an operator learn in a real-time environment how to navigate issues and operate a semi-autonomous service. Autonomy of vehicles improved during the pandemic, and it's most likely because of the the low traffic that we experienced during the peak in the summer. There have been improvements in shuttle autonomy utilization on the Dash West route between the last month of service and the first month after relaunch. There's been an enhanced fleet attendant training, improvements in the main mobility autonomy system, favorable weather, and vehicle route mapping improvements have led directly to increase in fleet attendant autonomy utilization. Persistence of construction in certain area projects have led to a low autonomy utilization in specific areas, notably along Ionia Avenue Northwest and Pearl Street, as you can see here by the areas on the map in dark blue. AVs were initially not programmed to turn right on red, but after receiving complaints from motorists and Dash riders and the drivers, the AVs have adjusted to start turning right on red with the help of fleet attendants. So last December, we pushed a customer survey through the city's media channels to get feedback from our ridership as well as the community at large. These questions were intended to help us understand the effects of the pilot. As we see here, we had 119 responses, 55% of which use AVGR for non-work trips. That means entertainment, errands, or other at school as well. But work was still the large usage by category. We see here that 23% had not tried public transit in Grand Rapids before. And so coming from Michigan, home of Motor City, everyone has at least 2 vehicles. That's really good to see here. That brought a huge smile to my face. And even more so, 14% had not tried any public transit before. And so it's hard to believe, you go to New York and you don't, jump on the subway. And so to see that 14% was great. 24% said that AVGR caused them to try Dash, and the 12% said AVGR caused them, again, like say transit in another city. We had a good range of respondents in age, and 94% of respondents said that they felt safe riding in AVGR, which is great because you've got, initially we had worries about, what does it look like? Is it on a rail? Is it on an overhead, line? How is it going to turn left and unprotected lefts? In protected lefts, the right on red, as I mentioned. So that was a really good number to see. So here's what we learned from the pilot regarding autonomy insights. We've had the opportunity to learn and adapt to live traffic in a downtown environment with all the construction we've had lately as well in our downtown core. Primarily challenges have been heavy precipitation and traffic and difficult turning movements, as I mentioned. Service insights, while starting with weekday plus weekend hours, we learned that weekdays are more popular. So we switched from a Tuesday through Saturday schedule to a Monday through Friday after we were seeing about 200 ride averages on Saturdays. And after just 2 Mondays, we saw that increase to about 400. Regarding accessibility, the city did not have to pay more for WAVE, and accessibility is one of our pilot objectives and very important to the city of Grand Rapids. We only have had to deploy the WAVE vehicle or the WAVE only once so far in the pilot. Other insights, relationships between emerging autonomous transportation services and existing public transit agencies are obviously still developing. So some survey respondents had never tried public transit in Grand Rapids before and seemed more willing to try other public transportation options after trying AVGR. So that's conversations that we're bringing to public transit here, to our local transit authority, regional transit authority known as the Rapid. And now to the good part where we get to talk. Thank you so much for sitting quietly and listening. And yeah.
We were in the chat though, Ken. We were in the chat kind of talking to
okay.
each other and asking questions and stuff. So Joel and I do have a couple of specific questions, and we want to encourage you all to throw your questions into the chat for Ken so they can respond to those questions as well. So Joel, you want to take the first question?
Yeah, let's while people are reading the chat, and we'll give Ken a chance to kind of catch up a little bit. Let's just go right back to the actual very beginning here and getting Grand Rapids to buy in, right? So Grand Rapids is an Alliance member. We know they're an innovative city, but still, it's hard to get someone to buy into this. So what made the city say, yeah, we think it's a great idea to pilot this?
So the genesis was, our local organization, Start Garden, which is a accelerator and incubator for startups. They were at South by Southwest when we could still get together, and they were on a panel with May Mobility, and they saw the idea. And Grand Rapids is always looking for different things to add as offerings to our residents and to our visitors. And so that's really how it started initially. But what made us say, yeah, this is a good idea, was a public-private partnership opportunity that allowed the city to prepare for this technology. So it wasn't just the city taking this on. It was Start Garden, Faurecia, Steelcase, Rockford Construction, all these partners. And so that allowed us a little bit more breathing room. We get to test the AV technology and provide an additional way of getting around. It was all of that combined that said, okay, we have to move forward. And these kind of talks have been happening a lot in Michigan in general. I think more so in Detroit, but again, home of Motor City. We're always looking towards the future, and so it was a relatively easy ask then when we have all these partners available to us to say, okay, we're going to test this out. And we wanted to be done with theorizing and start practicing and testing.
So I'm gonna jump in with a question that's not necessarily on the script, but of course, the things that you said about this ecosystem of these great partners. I mean, Grand Rapids is truly an entrepreneurial climate. And was it the coming together of those partners that gave your city council the ability to say yeah, let's try it? I mean, you used a magic word, pilot. That's always a good bracket to put around something. You had all of these partners and and so I'm thinking about Decatur, Georgia, or West Bend, Wisconsin, or a county, Hennepin County, and what would the elected folks maybe need to hear for them to bang the gavel and say, yeah, we're going to do this? What worked with your city council?
Yeah, I think Start Garden has done a great job in the city of constantly bringing in new ideas and kind of priming our elected officials and the community at large that we have this entrepreneurial and innovative spirit. So it wasn't so much quiet. People might not have heard about Grand Rapids prior to the election, but now that you know about us, it's been something that we've been priming for a while. So I think it's a lot more of to use an example, you dive into still water, you're gonna hit that fluid, really quickly. It's going to compress. But that's why they have, when you have a diver actually doing it, they have those bubbles bubbling to break the surface so that it's an easier transition. And so we have Start Garden making those bubbles on the surface to make that an easier transition when you get news about, let's get autonomous vehicles in here. And so we're more doers, we're thinkers and doers, but we've really been pushing on the do part lately. And that's really what, we've been primed already. So it was an easier ask. It was more so the logistics, and with the corporate partners, that made it a lot easier.
Right on. Good. Thank you for responding to that. I'm going to be using that bubble metaphor. I did not know that about the high diving and all of that. So breaking up the surface with some of that effervescence is a good one. Joel, over to you.
When you look at this, I want to get the pilot is exciting, but I also want to share the vision, right? So you're really riding around in a test vehicle with a driver. And the driver is taking over at a point in time. So this is not saving money. It's not more efficient. It's not a bunch of stuff. It's a proof of concept. What is take us 3 steps forward? What is in success? What does this look like? Why do we care about autonomous vehicles and public transportation?
Yeah, so that takes it a little bit further, I think, beyond like my pay grade, I should say. I don't get to make those decisions, but I think that, an autonomous type of a vehicle, if we can start dreaming pie in the sky, that might look like 24-hour service. That might look like, taking off my city hat, putting on my nerd hat. There's a lot of talk about, these AV vehicles being on demand and using like deep AI to understand like routing. Prior to joining the city, I worked for a tech startup in the delivery space. And that was something that we were looking into because routing is so difficult. And I managed New York. And so that was finding routes from, like Midtown to the Upper West Side. And then we also had different, all that stuff. You need big AI, deep AI to like crunch those numbers and find routes. And that's really exciting. That's more than 3 steps forward. But to find out, if you're a resident from the South Side and you're trying to get downtown, you leave that vehicle downtown, then, what other rides can you be picking up on the way? I know there's a lot of other startups that have been working on this, and we've kind of like faltered, but if you're a true startup nerd, you know that when you start seeing failures in groupings like that, sometimes it's a sign that, they were just a little bit before their time, and that's a good sign for what's to come for the future. But it's 2020, anything could happen. This could be, we all want this kind of like, we all might want autonomous vehicles that are adjusting their routes constantly, moving away from the spoke and wheel kind of public transportation model that we have. But we might see a paradigm shift that none of us are seeing right now. So it's 2020. There's still over a month left, so something could still happen. Elon Musk can pop up and give us something. I don't know.
Ken, as you were describing, working in a transit startup in New York was your territory, I was thinking, wow, Grand Rapids is so lucky to have you. You speak a lot of languages that really benefit this organization. What a great get you are for the city. I want to come now to some of the audience questions, and John's got one about I love this. I love any question that starts with this a positive, which is not to sound like a crazy person, but what is or are the primary benefits to automated public transit versus operated by a human?
Well, since this is the pilot and we saw a lot of, we always had an attendant, it's hard to parse that out since there was always a fleet attendant there. I haven't had the privilege, because I don't think one exists without a fleet attendant. I think unless you have a Tesla and use the autonomous mode, the co-pilot mode, it's hard to parse that out, what the benefits would be, if I heard that correctly, of a fully autonomous vehicle. I guess it would be, there's an increase in size of the cabin area, but I think that we're always going to have, at least for the foreseeable future, there's always going to be somebody there, because people think it might just be like a fleet attendant, but I've read elsewhere online that that it frees up the attendant's space if the technology gets better. But then what could that attendant be doing? The attendant could be an experienced manager for the city and answer questions. The wayfinding could be reduced and be inputted into a person, and say, that person helps you, like, where are you headed? You're like, oh, I'm headed, I need to get groceries. Like, well, on the route, there's 2 other grocery stores that are a lot closer. It might have been a visitor that they didn't know about. So there's a lot. I'm sorry if I didn't answer that question quite so well, but I'm just unsure because of my experience.
We have an intimate enough group too here that, John, if you want to come at the question another way, you're welcome to do that. And even if you want to put an asterisk next to your question because you want to come off mute, like it's not crazy, like your kids aren't screaming in the background, we'd love to hear your voice as well. Joe Wade has a question, and my ears perked up actually, Ken, when you talked about people visiting Grand Rapids, because I was like, oh my God, what a way to brand your city as like this environment, this entrepreneurial ecosystem, which you are. I know Grand Rapids very well. You are that city, but yeah, people who haven't visited or don't know. So I could see how using the AVs helped reinforce that brand to visitors. And that's Joe's responsibility, is to manage the visitor experience in her community. But she asked a question about, the specific routing. And could you program this for like special event shuttling? And I'm thinking, I don't know, Joe, are you thinking like Purdue football games? Like, are you thinking Boilermaker events?
I'll let Joe, yeah.
Well, or any big event. I mean, it could be a convention group going to someplace, going to a social that they don't know. I mean, haven't come in with cars. It could be even in a bigger city, Indianapolis, for some of their big games or whatever.
Or the 500,
or any of the things going on downtown, from the hotels because it's dangerous sometimes to walk in the dark from the hotels that don't have the inside walks.
Yeah, so I'd say that, first of all, I think the city would be amenable to having that conversation if there was a change in route. But Bay Mobility and our department and our planners in our department did a really good job in selecting the right type of route. And Dash West was the route that was used as like the structure, but Dash West is already really well positioned to serve a lot of those areas really well. It goes right into our arena space and all the hotels that are downtown as well. So although I couldn't see a scenario where one of those event spaces would need particular an adjustment to the route, since the route already serves them, by design. I'd say I'm trying to think, like, if GVSU is one of the bigger universities here, if they had to do something, but we just got a Laker line, and so an articulating bus. This is my we got one of these.
That's called a Laker line. Oh, and it's flexible.
Yeah. Sometimes you're in the corner here just outside of my office, and it looks like I'm really showing my Grand Rapids pride here. It looks like a future city because you've got the Laker line, the Silver line, the Dash, the 12, the 15. You've got the autonomous vehicles. You've got a little preview to what I want to plug later is you've got scooters now, and we're going to be getting other shared vehicles later on. It's great. And to answer your question, Joe, like we actually have a skywalk that is like over a mile of indoor, just walkway from one of our bigger lots that visitors use. And so it's not quite like Toronto or Montreal where it's like you can go anywhere underground, but it is a significant covered walkway.
Awesome. I think all of this is just playing into your master plan, Ken, to never again have to have your own vehicle. I mean, when you talked about like all this stuff. We've got one more question from Heather, and Kim made a little comment about a book she was wondering about as well. But Heather, yeah.
With that.
Heather has a question about the unknowns. So of course, we hear about when there's an accident that happens, right? Or something goes wrong. And she's wondering if there have been ideas floated, such as a designated lane that's, painted specifically for the AV, or are there any other campaigns? I know when cities start doing really heavy, intensive bike programs, there is a whole bunch of education that's needed for drivers of cars to now make, share the road, make room and so forth. So how are you thinking about that with AVs?
Currently, we aren't thinking about that. There's a lot of projects on our plate, but that is something that, again, that would be something for our planners. Not a planner here, but something for our planners to review and think. But I would imagine that, it kind of falls in line to what we think about with, our Laker line, our Silver line, all the other bus lines and Dash. Like, what we are aspiring to have is bus only lanes, and that increases the timing that those buses have. And we do have, during peak rush hour outside of the pandemic, that did become an issue. And so that was something that we were looking into. And I don't see why the AVs wouldn't be able to be allowed to also ride in that bus only lane. Um, that seems like it would just make sense. And so again, I don't have a planner hat to put on and give that opinion, but from a department point of view, it doesn't seem like there would be much reason to push back on something like that. And I'll credit you if it happens, Heather.
That's awesome. Heather, another feather in your cap. All right, so it's time to start winding us down. So in the wind down here, if you guys wouldn't mind in the chat, any word or phrase or appreciation for Ken, any inspiration that you got here. It's always nice in these, muted environments for the, it's like doing TV versus doing theater. Let's give Ken some props for things that they've been able to inspire in us or takeaways. And while the audience is typing, I want to turn it over to you, Joel, because we have this feature called the Plug Zone. So Joel, what is the Plug Zone?
The Plug Zone is for us to hear the best of everyone. I started off by plugging Govapalooza because it's a big deal and I want people to know about it. We want to know what you're working on. What partnerships are you developing? What papers have you published? What books have you read? What fabulous dinner parties are you going to? Whatever you want to share, but please, we want to hear from you. And I think, Rebecca, format-wise, should we just this is an unmute? We want people to actually get on and share, correct?
Yeah, well, actually, this is thank you for coming to our dress rehearsal, everybody. This is actually for Ken to plug what Ken wants to plug, because I think they've got a couple things they really wanted to bring out. But I love the idea of our other guests being able to also plug the things that they're excited about, like we did about Govapalooza. But let's let Ken take a crack at it. What do you want to put in the plug zone, dude?
I think I just want to plug, because I want to hear so much, because when you told me about Govapalooza, I was already writing myself a note, like, I need to reach out to Joel offline. Like, we need to talk about this because I've had something similar in mind for a while. So what I'd like to plug in is just, Grand Rapids has recently brought in shared micromobility. And so we see that with scooters right now, electric scooters, and that has been, our current vendor is Spin. So it's a Ford subsidiary company and then based in Detroit. And we're looking to get another vendor out and up by spring, and to have shared bicycles, electric assist bicycles. And so that's what we're looking into right now. And we are, I'm excited. The nerd side of my brain, the project manager side, is kind of excited about solving this issue of, we've got, it has to be on the road. And someone mentioned, I think it was you, Rebecca, that mentioned there's education whenever there's some kind of infrastructure that's placed on the road. There's a re-education or an extra education that needs to be had by motorists. And we've got scooters now on the road. And so that has been a really interesting project to tackle and educating everyone. And there's this balance we all know of. The road sometimes doesn't feel safe for non-motorists, and how do we tackle that, and how do we do short-term solutions paired with long-term lasting solutions as well. So that's something that I am really interested in. If anybody has books regarding things like that, Kim, I would be so happy to get to have a read about that, but happy to hear from everyone else.
Appreciate that. I did I found a news release about the Spin program. I threw the link into the chat, but here's energizing vision of what is possible. These are some of the appreciation. Thanks for tons to think about. B. Greenberg, excellent presentation, worth sharing these ideas locally. Agree with you. I want to do the same thing with our folks here. Although our city council just said that they want to pass a wheel tax. And so I think they're looking at our single-owned cars as being part of their revenue stream. So I don't know how open they would be to it at this point. And then Paul Roback said, you know, the accessibility could be a real game changer. And that's one of the things I heard early on from General Motors is that when we go to AVs, we're actually going to have more traffic in the very near term because people who normally could not get out and around on their own, like shut-ins or people who've got mobility issues, like those who need accessible vehicles, they're going to be able to do that now. And so it's actually going to make traffic a bit worse in the near term until all of our AVs kind of get linked up and connected with each other and so forth. So, and Joel is adding applications for rural areas, especially with large senior populations. I could totally see clinics, hospitals and clinics employing AVs like this to help people get to and from any medical appointments that they have to get to that can't be served via remote. So this has just been absolutely fantastic. So I did want to ask you, Ken, one other thing, and this is, maybe you can add this to the chat. You mentioned a YouTube star, Jehu Garcia. I would like to follow them on Twitter or on YouTube because like you said, it's kind of out there right now, but in 3 to 5 years, you could see more of us doing this kind of stuff. So would love to know who that is. Joel, Ken, thank you for being my partners in illumination and innovation here today. I wonder if either of you have any closing comments before we wave goodbye and wish everybody a fantastic Thanksgiving and following week. Joel, let's start with you. Closing words?
Yeah, Ken brought up something really important to me. One of the big reasons that systems would want to integrate driverless vehicles is cost savings, right? One of the biggest costs in your fleet is your drivers. And so if you're just eliminating drivers and just thinking that's a win, that is not a win, right? That is not a social win. That's just displacing costs somewhere else. So when Ken had an example of transitioning those drivers from a vehicle operator to a facilitator of conversation and a conduit into the community, that's an integrated vision of the future, right? And I think it's important for us as futurists, technologists, and innovators to look at the consequences of what we're trying to set up, right? Just putting 1 million people out of a job is not exactly something that I would really be proud of. But transitioning people to higher order jobs, that's something to really be proud of. So thank you, Ken, for really calling that out as a specific element of the transition.
Thank you. Yeah, for me, I think it gets more personal. I really thought this was going to be kind of more of a cut and dry presentation, but I'm really happy that I found fellow nerds, and I feel like this is my people, and so love to stay connected. Tune in again as an audience member. This is great. This is what I do in my free time when I'm not at work, and so I've really enjoyed this, and I hope we can stay connected.
I think you can count on it. I think you're now one of us, sir. So
yeah, that's it.
Here we go. Here we go. So we even had a 25-year resident of Grand Rapids saying like, GR strong, GR proud. Like, it's really great to see this happening. And Ken is certainly a next gen leader there. Thank you for all your work. All right, you guys, we're off next Friday. I posted the schedule. Great to see you. Take care of each other and the 3 W's. Wash your hands, wear your mask, and watch your distance. I want to see you at coming future Fridays. Take care. See ya.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Bye.